Fair use.
Shalom, shalom. It's your brother PJ back. And sorry I've been taking a little break. Took a little hiatus from everything, man. But I hope everybody been alright. And we're gonna hop into the continuation of what I've been talking about. But we're gonna talk about the crux of Europe and what started 1492. We're gonna talk about the Moors in Spain. But before we get into the information about the Moors in Spain, which the Moors are really the foundation.
Understand the Moors is very difficult for us as a people to understand why we're in the position that we're in today. You cannot understand why we're in the position we're in today if you don't understand what happened in 1492. You cannot understand what happened in 1492 if you don't understand the Crusades. You cannot understand the Crusades if you don't understand the Moors. Because the very nature of the knowledge that the Crusaders, the Christian Europeans, got of the riches of the East, why Columbus was on the seas in the first place hundreds of years later, was because of what the Moors had brought into Spain.
Propaganda, sparked by the Crusade, has given us an enduring image. The diabolical Moor, a dark-skinned, savage, alien enemy.
But this character is a complete invention. Now, archaeologists and historians are starting to piece together the real story of the Moors in Spain. They're uncovering the remains of hidden cities, discovering the role of Muslims in the revival of the classics, and decoding the meaning of Islamic buildings.
We find the fall of the Moors in 1492, and that fall was a tremendous fall because it was to change so many things. And the most important thing it was to change was the attitude of the world towards people of African descent. Because there was a deliberate attempt to destroy everything, to destroy even the memory of that time. In 1492, Cardinal Ximenes ordered every...
And 12. Abel Ra, even had seen Abel Ra. Go right in, Senor Judge.
No. Why should I be the one to go in first?
Then you go ahead, Federico.
No, I'd rather wait right here. You go in first, Pedro, and we'll wait for you here.
Very well, as you prefer. My Peco, you've come. Well, come on, brother. We'll bring the senors as much gold as we can carry.
Now we know the way. And if he actually brings the treasure, then you know what to do.
We'll thank him just as he deserves. Here, take it. Look at that. He didn't lie.
It's gold. It's real Moorish gold. I've never seen so much before in all my life. You go down at once and bring the chest right here.
No, thank you, senors. We have enough, Peco and I. It's your turn now.
And who's Peco? Now I know.
All right, then. We'll manage to bring up the chest without your aid, and you'll get nothing out of it.
Follow me, senors!
Now's the time. See, fate is on my side.
A lot of the culture and history that you
well,
see
that's all,
in
my
Europe,
Peco.
especially in Spain,
Don't be
Spanish
afraid.
culture you see in
You'll
South
never
America,
again see those
Mexico.
three horrible senors.
In real, a lot of the culture in period in Europe, because the Moors were the people who brought Europe a lot of the culture that they have today. We're just gonna keep it that simple. And on top of that, the very first people to inhabit Spain were Phoenician. So we're gonna break that down. That's gonna be the first thing, and I'm gonna put a couple pictures up just to show you a couple of the artifacts that they found. And we're gonna go over some information with sources that this is what the scholars say, who was the first inhabitants of Spain or Iberia. And excuse me with these names. These names are very, very hard to pronounce. But Diodorus Sculois, and generally of the Greek writers, give the name Iberia to all of Spain from a colony of Iberians. The Phoenicians gave it the name Iberia for the name Hebrew Eber. Just something you didn't know. The word Iberia is basically basically similar to the word Eber, and that's where that translation comes from. And the source for that would be Universal History of the Ancient part. That is volume 18, 1748. The name of Iberia directly shows the connection of Spain and the children of Eber. This source is from the Saturday Review of Politics and Literature and Science and Art, volume 34, 1872. The people known as the Iberians, the Hebrews, were spread all over the British Isles, whether indigenous or immigrants. Physically, they were swarthy black of color, had curly hair, and were bearded like goats. Source: David McRitchie, Ancient and Modern Britons, 1884. And this is a lot of stuff that is known with historians, and this is known in the scholarly world, that in any society, the very first people to inhabit were melanated and more than likely Negroid descent. This is just something that's known, but this is not something that's known in our society because people just don't read, people don't research, and these are not things that are just practiced upon. As I continue, the Phoenicians are recorded to have visited Britain and Ireland about 600 BC. Source: George Thomas Bittany, The World's Inhabitants or Mankind, Animals and Plants, 1888. The name Britain is most probably derived from the Phoenician words Baratonic, the land of Tim. Source: Rapin de Thoyas, The History of England, volume 4, 1747. Various have been the conjectures of different writers with no respect to the origin of the name Britain, but among the whole of most probable, it was first called Britannic, which is the name said to have been given by the Phoenicians, which are black people. And this source comes from George Alexander Crook, Topography of Great Britain or British Travelers Directory, 1802. Who are the Phoenicians? The Phoenicians were Canaanites, who were the descendants of Ham, who were thus Hamites. Hamites was a term once used as a reference to so-called blacks. The record of Genesis claims that the Phoenicians were the descendants of Ham. Source: in Nidus Donley, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, 1882. Herodotus, the father of historian, moreover speaks of the descendants of Ham, the Phoenicians. Source: the Bombay Quarterly Magazine and the Review, volume 2, 1852. Ham name in Hebrew is Cham, which means black, the present color of the Negro. Therefore, Ham is the progenitor of the black race. Source: Ariel Bunneker H. Payne, The Negro is the ethnology status, 1867. And that is just a little breakdown of the early history of Spain, the early inhabitants before we're talking about BC era, before Christ. These are the early inhabitants. And just like I was showing in the other videos prior, If you break this down, you can go through Germany, all these different countries. The very first inhabitants that brought culture and any sense of civilization to these lands were so-called black people. And another thing I want to break down, I was reading those sources, but if you really want to understand something, Shem, Ham, and Japheth are all so-called black people. When you really break this down and you get into the DNA and they break down the bones of it. And I will get into that later day. We've already done Shem and proof Shem was of Negro descent, and I'll do Japheth later. But this is just already something that's a known fact. All those three descendants were so-called black people at that time. White people did not exist in the time of Noah. This is a known fact. They came a lot later on. But we're going to go, and I got some more here, something to go into. And this is something that's still very prevalent in Europe. And this is something that a lot of people in America don't understand, or we might look at a little different. It's something, you might see somebody dress up in blackface. And just because somebody dresses up in blackface doesn't always mean that they're doing it to mock us, or so-called black people, so-called Negro people. Sometimes they're doing it in veneration of the rulership in the past. And what I mean by that, and I'm gonna put some pictures on the screen and we're gonna go over some of this history, is there's something called in Spain, they have something called Three Kings Day, which is a day in history where they pay homage to the Moorish rulership. And they currently do it, and I'll put some videos up, and I will also put some pictures up of this. And literally you will see thousands of white people paint their face black and dress up in the Moorish garb in veneration of the Moorish king. And also we will break down a couple of the Moorish kings and go into their history just to show you the rulership of Spain and to prove these things, because a lot of people do not understand this. And when you travel to these countries, which I have, and that's part of the reason why I took the hiatus, is you will see these things in the museums, you will see statues, you will see these things depicted all throughout the country. It's just something that they don't depict and tell the story of here in America, and it's a travesty. And people that don't travel outside of their state, let alone the country of America, will never see or hear this information. That's why a lot of the white people in America have a very biased view of world history. They think that anything of creation that is of any value came from them. If it's attached anywhere outside of Africa, and that could be far from the case. There's very few things in the world that actual white people have contributed throughout history. That's just the truth and the matter of fact. Not saying they contributed nothing, but most of the things we have today was contributed through people of color because they have been here longer. But we're going to get into this Three Kings Day. I just wanted to break down a little, have an introduction before I go through this. There are a few ways to determine what is true of the past. To this end, art and literature are dependent on the most. Art is a many form, provides the visual aid necessary to understand what the world looked like before our time. A majority of portion is also determined by literature, which will be the focus of this section. To understand literature, there needs to be an understanding of meaning of words. History started being revised during the 19th century. The definition of words posed a problem. That problem was addressed by skewing the meaning of words and have proved effective in depictiveness. Therefore, the audience must be reacquainted with the actual meaning of two words, swarthy and more. And before I continue, this is what I was talking about in the early 1900s. This is something that you can look up yourself, and I'll put a picture up. The Rockefellers invested in what we call the modern day educational system. And this is the reason why, because they wanted to change the history, because a lot of these things I'm going over and a lot of these things I'm talking about were not prevalent in the 1800s, in the 1700s. This was just known history that so-called Negro, so-called black people ruled Europe, and they brought culture and civilization to that place. But this is something that has been changed and revamped recently by white people. And this is what a lot of black people do not realize. This is what a lot of black people do not understand. This is not something that has been that has been perpetuated for a long time. This is something that is very recent. And this is why I do this work. This is something I'm trying to change. All it takes is a couple generations of getting this information pushed to our people so they understand that we have a great history that we have lost. We have lost and we have forgotten about. And we put more emphasis on things that do not matter, history that do not matter, than things that do matter. And let's continue. Three Kings Day, the unresolved history in modern Spain. These are the images of Spaniards celebrating Three Kings Day. They were taken from Alcoy, Spain on January 5th, 2019. The costumes are chosen by hundreds of young people clearly seek to mock the Moors, who left them to taint the face of Spanish history. This is unresolved history of the black-skinned conquerors. Has affected the very psyche of today's inhabitants who are knowingly driven by racial retribution. And just to give you a better understanding of what I'm trying to say there is, this is why today Spaniards and Spanish people have the most disdain for so-called black people, because they had a rulership of a black monarch over them for so long, controlling what they did. So they have a disdain for black people more so than the other ones. And anybody that's from the Caribbean, anybody that's Haitian, anybody that is Jamaican, they will tell you this themselves. People that are of Spanish descent, especially from Spain, have a very harsh descent for so-called black people. It's just something that's true because of this history right here I'm telling you. And this is something you very rarely get out of them. They will not tell you this. If you tell them this is a history that they will denounce. They don't like it. But they have statues, bars, books, thousands of different forms of history, information, and art that proves that all this stuff is true, that we're not just making this up. But let's continue. Historical depictions of monarchs. These are the words and foundation of importance because how we often were used the depictions of monarchs in the past. Charles II of England was called a swarthy steward by a biographer of James Boswell Charles. The mother called him Black Boy, and the day he was born on account of his complexion. His son Charles Lennox, first the Duke of Richmond, was described as a very credulous, well-shaped black complexion, much like King Charles, not 13 years old. His son George Fizon, Duke of Northumberland, was described as a tall black man like his father, the king, about 40 years old. Memoirs of the Secret Service of John Mackay, 1733, page 36 and 39. And on the warrant of the issues of Charles' arrest, he was described as a tall black man. Peter the Great, Caesar of Russia, was historically described as a swarthy complexion. He was described as a visit to France by the Count of Hunsville and Little Bent, that his head was bent over ordinarily. He is black and he is something fierce in his face. Abu al-Abad Muhammad was known as a Bohadid, and he was the last emperor of the Granada in Spain. He was known as a Moor in an account of his black complexion. Alessandro de la Medica, Duke of Florence, was known as a Moor. The account of his black complexion, he was the great-grandson of Lorenzo de Medici, called the Magnificent, who was described as having a swarthy complexion. These descriptions only scratch the surface of what will be explored in this space. But this is depictions of black monarchs that are read and depictions of black monarchs that are seen. And the definitions of words of swarthy and Moor are understood. And I'm gonna put a picture up, just different meanings historically what that meant. And we've already went through this before in earlier videos, historically through books, through biographies, and just showing you different ways that this word swarthy, Moor, means black. It always pertains to somebody, and it pertains to complexion, somebody of a dark complexion. Swarthy, swart, as an adjective that is defined as black, dark, brown, tawny, is used as a verb. It means to blacken or to dust. The word swarthy does not exist without its roots, which means swart. The definition of swarthy is a dark complexion, black, dusky, tawny. The definition comes from the Dictionary of the English Language, written by Samuel Johnson, published in 1755. And this is what this is just to go back what I was saying. This is why the educational system and the changing of meaning of words was very prevalent in the 1900s. This is why that was a thing, to eradicate this kind of history. And it's not just this history that has to do with Europe and Spain. This is something that they did to erase our history worldwide. And throughout the videos on my channel, I'm going to be showing that, and you're going to see it for yourself. And this is why, honestly, modern day history school, the educational system in general, is really full of lies. It's full of a bunch of falsehoods to just basically confuse people and put a certain group of people in a certain light. That's really what the history that we get today is for. And as I continue, the definition of Moor, blackamoor, the blackamoor from Samuel Johnson Dictionary are shown in the image above. And I'll show you the straight picture from that dictionary. You can look up yourself. They are defined with the same meaning. A Negro Johnson definition of the Moor derives from Shakespeare, whom he studied extensively. Shakespeare flourished in the 16th century and was considered the greatest writer in English language. In his play, The Merchant of Venice, Lorenzo, I shall answer that better the Commonwealth that you can getting up of the Negro whose belly the Moor with a child by you. So this is basically a straight up quote from Shakespeare saying that if you wanted to come into wealth, the Commonwealth, is you need to have a child by a Moor, essentially. So basically saying that the Moors were the Commonwealth of that time. This is a very excerpt is referencing the several editions of Johnson's dictionary and varies of that Moor and the Negro synonyms. Negro is actually a Spanish word for black, effectively binding the word Moor and black. In the Greek, mavro means Moor, or the V character actually represents the U. Moor literally means black, as the Greeks named the Black Sea Marvil Thalassa is to this very day. And I'll show you a couple pictures depicting animals and dishes and just different things that represent a swarthy or dark dish. And when you see these things and the things that we use that refer to these things, you look at them, they're dark, they're black, they have a dark complexion. This is just an adjective word to describe what something looks like. And we also use them in names. And also I'll put a couple of pictures of the family crest. And on the family crest, just like we talked about earlier, you'll see yourself the depiction of the Moors themselves. And just like I harp on again and again and again, is you'll hear some white scholars say, hey, these pictures of these crests have slaves on them. But the argument that I always put up is, why would they spend money to have these pictures painted of slaves? Why wouldn't they just go ahead and put pictures of their family on the crest to represent their own family? And you can also find crests with white people on there. So that's how you know it is a lie. Because they wouldn't put a slave on a crest that represents their family. They would go put these pictures on a crest that represents a family that looks like that picture on it. That's the only thing that makes sense. Another thing I'll put up there, and this is just because we're going to talk about Charles V or Carlos Quinto. And I'm going to put a picture of the picture. This is in the Larco Museum in Lima, Peru. I've been here myself, and this is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful painting. And the one that they have depicting when you go there, it's not this picture. This picture right here is in a different spot in that museum. And also, if you go to Spain, they'll have this picture, but it'll be a different version. It'll be a whitewashed version of this. But this is the original picture from that time period. And just like we talked about in earlier videos, they did a lot of whitewashing and changing of history. So when you see these pictures, you Google these pictures today, this photo right here may or may not pop up. But when you go to the museum or you go look up in the books themselves that was written in that time, you will see these depictions. That's why I bring these pictures up. A lot of people in Paris, where you getting these pictures from? These are depictions that you will find in the books that were written in 1700s. You will not find the pictures of these black rulers just Googling them. That's not how this works. I try to explain this to people all the time. Not to just run long with it, but just to help people research things. They want to find things themselves. You really have to go through these books written in that time, and you will see certain pictures, and they will depict them yourself. And sometimes some books will refer to certain museums or refer to certain places. And if you have a chance, you may go there yourself and see these pictures yourself. It's all about becoming a real historian. And sometimes becoming a real historian means you have to go find things. It may be you have to research them on the internet or research them in books, or you may have to travel somewhere and actually get time to physically see it yourself. And this is the journey of becoming a real historian. And in conclusion, just the arena, more means black and swarthy means black. All right, and just to jump to another. The section we're going to talk about, and this photo I got up here right here, I'll put up a photo of myself. I've seen this photo myself in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington D.C. myself, and I've seen the historical breakdown of this Moorish picture myself. And this is what I mean by, and they have this picture in Spain too, but this is what I mean by you have to travel and go to these places and see these things for yourself. Because just me telling you this or you seeing these things on the internet may not be enough. But when you go there and you see these statues and these paintings and the detail in them and how old they are, then you'll know. You'll know the history. You'll know how special and rich our history is and how much they do just to hide very simple things. And you'll see it for yourself. And when you see it for yourself, it changes your whole mindset as a so-called person, a so-called melanated person, a so-called black person. Your whole mindset when people tell you things, when people tell you can't do things, or people tell you about your people, you'll understand that we're much more than that. You cannot gauge my people off of a 100-year span and say we are this, because we have been much more than this for 3,000, 5,000, 6,000 years. And this is the whole goal of why I do this, is that you can't take a small portion of our history and just relegate to that's all that we know and that's all that we do. And we have thousands of years of doing great things that benefit everybody today and have benefited everybody since the beginning of time. And let's get to this document. The Gang of Kings, chess, arrives in Al-Adalis. And when you see this Moorish picture written in it's gotta be old. Yeah, this gotta be old Spanish, or this might be Latin. But when you see that they're playing an older version of chess, and in the picture, you'll obviously see two brothers with a turban on, of Moorish descent, and you'll see the afros, the beards, kind of look like me, and then you'll see women of color. You'll see one with a harmonica, different women of color. This picture right here is in the museum. I'll put the picture I have of myself I took up. Roughly around the fiscal year of 70 AD. The blacks, the blue men, the Moros, the Moranos, the Islamic and Jewish Moors introduced the board game called Shatrangi, or Shatrangara in Arabic, which is known as Farsi in Persian, which is known as Shatrang in Ephesia. Chess was played by many cultures ago in China, India, and Persia. Its origin is unknown. In the 8th century, armies of the Arabs known as Moors invaded Persia. The Moors learned the chess from the Persians. When the Moors later invaded Spain, the soldiers brought the game of chess with them. Soon the Spanish were playing chess games too. From Spain, chess quickly spread throughout all of Europe. However, the board game Senet is known as the oldest game in the world, which is recognized as having the origins in ancient Tamari, Egypt. The oldest board game in the world, Senet, appeared in ancient Egypt around 3300 BC. Senet, which is a very popular land of the pharaohs, especially among the nobles and wealthy people. Many archaeologists see Senet as the ancestor or predecessor of chess. Variations of chess and various board games were also enjoyed by Olmec. Considered that it is well documented that the Chinese played Bakugan, which derived from Leabu, which is allegedly over 3,000 years old, could have been a Moroccan American too. After black or the original Mongolia Chinese traveled to America during the first fiscal year of 459 AD, and trade commerce was established between these two people. Therefore, it is possible that maybe the original black Chinamen that had brought with them Liabu to America. In 459 AD, these Mongoloid Chinese came into the California and bumped into the Negroid Olmecs, and they lived and mixed together each other. The Olmecians gave them the lower land in South America to the Yucatan, which became known as Amexem, which came from the word Hyksos, which is better known for the name of Hashashin or Hoshin. 1492, the fall of Granada and the Moorish expulsion. The Reconquista of the Spanish Portuguese Galicia, the Reconquest, is a historical term used to describe the military campaigns and that Christian kingdoms waged against the Moors from the 8th century until 1492. In order to reconquer the Iberian territories, which was lost due to the Umayyad conquest of Hispania, the key battles of the Reconquest was the Battle of Cavadonia, 718 to 722, the first Christian victory, the Battle of Las Navas Tolas, 1212, decisive turning point, the Siege of Cordoba, 1236, the fall of the Great Moorish stronghold, the Siege of Sevilla, 1248, another major Moorish city fall, and the fall of Granada, the final surrender, 1492. Its circulation came in 1492 with the fall of Nasrid. The kingdom of Granada united to the united Spanish crown of the Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabel I of Castile. After the surrender of Granada in 1492, the entire Iberian Peninsula was controlled by Christian rulers. On the 30th of July 1492, as a result of the Alhambra decree of the Jewish communities in Castile and Aragon, some 200,000 people were forcibly expelled. Sorry. And just to give you a little breakdown of that, when I was talking in earlier videos, if you follow my other videos, this is what I was talking about when they were kicking the rulership and the so-called melanated people out of Europe. And this is where you have your so-called indentured servants or your slaves that were coming from Europe in that time from 1492 that they sent to the Caribbean, that they sent to America, that they sent to South America. These are those people that they were talking about. And just to give you a further breakdown, and this is something that is documented, and you can also go through genealogy and find this out for yourself. But as I continue, the conquest was followed by a series of edicts from 1499 to 1526, which forced the conversations of Muslims in Spain. And it's kind of ironic if you know about the history today and what's going on in the world. Those same Muslims that was pushed out of Spain in 1492 are back today, because there's nothing new under the sun. What was once before shall happen again. There's nothing new that we are experiencing that hasn't happened before. That is in the Bible. That is from the Most High himself. He has told us that. A lot of people do not understand these things. History will repeat itself over and over. That's why it's key to understand things that have happened in history, because they will repeat themselves. As I continue, who were later expelled from the Iberian Peninsula by the decrees of King Philip III in 1609. Approximately 3 million Muslims immigrated and were driven out of Spain between 1492 and 1610. The hidden history of the black royalty in medieval Europe. I'm going to put up a couple of pictures of the medieval Europe and the rulership. Historically, research continues to reveal significant so-called African presence in medieval Europe, European royalty and nobility. What was once obscured or whitewashed in historical records is now coming to light through careful examination of primary sources and artwork in general and genealogical records. Just like I've been harping on my people to do genealogy. Genealogical records mean they're going through these people's family names and are finding the origin of these people's family names and where they come from. And when they do that, they're finding the origin of these people, and they're looking at where these people and what the artifacts look like, and they're telling them what these people are. Very, very simple to do. None of this DNA stuff that people try to claim that works, which doesn't, which is a force in itself, which was created by the white man to only work for him. As I continue. And I'm gonna put a couple pictures up of different ruling monarchs and different historical documents, so you'll see yourself. The historical evidence includes portraits, sculptures, genealogy records, contemporary accounts that document the so-called African heritage of numerous European royal families, from Charlemagne to the various Holy Roman emperors to Spanish royalty, beyond the interconnection between the so-called African and European nobility, which is far more extensive than commonly taught in mainstream history. And I'm gonna put a documentation just further go into that. This documentation serves as a reminder that the history is often more complex and diverse than commonly portrayed, and contributed of the so-called African people to European civilization, culture, and the nobility was significant and deserves a recognition and further study. The Royal Deception, we back. This is another document. I have all these links like I always do in the description of these documents that will give you further resources, links, first accounts, pictures, different things like that, where I'm getting this information from. And this is also part of a series that I'll be doing, that I have books and books of information of these black monarchs, and I'll be covering them in detail, just different ones at different periods of time, and releasing the information that goes with it. Some of the information may be free, some of it you may have to donate $1 to get it. It won't be nothing crazy, just something to donate, because some of this research ain't free and some of these books cost a lot. So just to go into this, Philip the Handsome, the King of Castile, unveiling the identity of the Castile Adoration. And this series comes from the, and it'll be more of them coming from, but this is from the Adoration of the Magi. And there are different iterations of this. This is just a depiction of Philip the Handsome. They have different iterations of this with different monarchs, different black kings and queens. This is just the one for Philip the Handsome. And I will be doing a separate series for them too, because there's a whole book detailing all these different adorations of the Magi. And if just a little backstory to that is the word Magi in especially in India means people of royal descent. So that is something in that area they use, something that somebody of royal descent. You can look that up for yourself. And what I'm gonna put up this picture of Philip the Handsome. If you see, it's the black man all the way to the right. The following sculpture is from Castile, Spain, which was created in the late 15th century. It depicts the adoration of the Magi scene, which is sculpted by Gil de la Sille. The analysis of the Castile adoration. The adoration seen above is part of the triptych carved by Gil de Sille at the end of the 15th century, which is located in the Collegiate Church of Carrabas in Castile, Leon, Spain. Gil de Sille, which is a sculptor from the Flanders that worked in Burgos, completed many works from Spanish royalty at the end of that time, including the funeral monuments. The Black King is the Balser of the Moorish kings. In 1496, a proxy marriage took place of Castile, or for a Joanna of Castile, Philip, of many counts, the Lord of the Netherlands, was not present. Joanna left Castile that year to arrive in the islands of her new husband. Their marriage arrangements were set by the heads of the House of Habsburg and the House of Transmara, who were the emperors of Maximilian I and the Catholic monarch of Ferdinand II, respectively. One nuanced factor of the note in the identification formula of the suitors and the son-in-laws in the age without the technology of instant capture likeness, nor instantly transmit or set likeness, people relied on an artist to see that people have never met. This was a useful means of seeing intended suitors in the lands far away. This sculpture by Gilles de Laissault, a native of Flanders, where Philip ruled, was completed at the end of the 15th century. When Philip and Joanna were married by proxy, it was carved in Burgos, where Joanna's father ruled, and it was placed where Philip died after ruling there for a few months. Habsburg and Avilius Burgundy. Philip did not inherit the family traits of the Habsburg jaw or the Austrian lip. This was more than likely a contributing factor that subsequently the handsome. It is often the case that the children will closely resemble one of their parents, but commonly occurring the phenomenon that is the grandchildren will closely resemble a grandparent, more so than their own parents. This, of course, is a product of our genetic makeup. And this is just going back because this is Philip the Handsome, and if you understand where his lineage comes from, that is Carlos Quintos' family. So they're related. And basically what they're saying, if you know Charles V had that Habsburg jaw, which means he just had a prominent jaw. Since Philip did not bear much of the resemblance of his father, a match of his traits was attempted with the information that was available in the research. To circle back in the starting point of the infamy, in that case, that Philip's maternal grandfather was Charles the Bold, Duke of Burgundy, as Charles the Bold was previously identified as a comparison and likeness he can be made to find any commonality. And I'll put that picture up of Charles the Bold and Charles the Handsome, and you'll see the similarity in them. They do look very similar. With regard into the comparison above, it appears that Philip had a very close resemblance to his grandfather, Charles the Bold. The resemblance is so close that it almost appears to be likeness of the same person, save a few minor distinctions. The places and the times of these two pieces are logically with respect to the formula. The Meloming adoration depicting Charles the Bold was made in Bourges, where Charles was the Count of Flanders. It is painted around 1470 and 1472, when Charles would have been between 37 and 39 years old. That is the match age for the Black King and Meloming adoration. The Castile adoration in Burgos, where Philip's father-in-law ruled, where he later ruled, it was carved around the end of the 15th century. Philip and Joanna were married in 1496. This would have made Philip about 18 years old, which matched the age of the Black King of the Castile adoration. Popular media in the book series, The Image of the Black in the Western Art, one of the apparent authorities in the depiction of who Black people are in history, is said of the Castile adoration, only the Black King, distinguished by the youthful gentleness of his features and bearing inherited from his Meloming, does exotics alone, explaining the contrast. The handsome Black King seems to have belonged to the sculpting stock. In 1496, June de Flanders, probably a native of Ghent, was summoned by the Isabella of Castile to be the court painter. This was the year in which the marriage of Joan the Maud, the daughter of Isabella, and Ferdinand to Philip the Far, the son of Maximilian I, and Marie of Burgundy prepared the extraordinary chains of successions which which the empire of Charles V was the outcome. And this is all talking about the ruling empire of Rome and Spain, Charles V, in which we're gonna touch on him later. As a reference to the Hans Melman, who created adoration of Charles the Bold, is made, the marriage between Joanna and Philip is also referenced, if it is that it is not coincided enough that the Black King is referenced as the handsome Black King. It is almost as if it serves as a ridicule the ignorance of the general public. It is the ridicule of the general public, of which it includes myself, as a hatred of ignorance that is taught from a young age. It may be some time before historic truths can be once again accepted. And I'll put another picture up, because if you go, it's like I said, just like the Three Kings Day, in those countries, especially in Spain, they still dress up as Philip of Castile, Philip the Handsome, and they'll paint their face black, and they do it as adoration and sometimes as just making fun of this history, because they know that we don't know it, so we don't understand why they doing it. And knowing that the world of today would never recognize the Black King as anything more than an out-of-place token, many institutions and so-called authorities can repurpose these actual rulers and caricatures that allow for our costumes that uphold the ideology of white supremacy. Philip the Handsome and the House of Habsburg were born in July 22nd, 1478 in Bourges in Belgium. He died on September 25th, 1506 in Burgos in Spain at the age of 28, and was buried at the Royal Chapel of Granada. He was the Duke of Burgundy and the Lord of the Netherlands from 1482 to 1506. He reigned as the King of Castile for barely 2 months in 1506. Yes, this was the shift of power of dynamics in Europe for centuries. The House of Habsburg would inherit a Spanish empire. The Castile adoration was either created or provided by the Castilians, which was the likeness of Philip, or his wedding gift for the union of Philip and Joanna. For the reasons specified, it can be concluded that the Black King in the Castile adoration is Philip the Handsome, King of Castile. All right, back again. So that was what we talked about earlier. That was Philip of Castile, Philip the Handsome. That was the grandfather of Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, Carlos V. And that's the picture I have up right now. That's Charles V. And I'm going to put this link to this document where I'm reading from it. This is Blacks Once Ruled All of Europe. And you'll see a picture up of the black royalty. And you'll see Carlos V. You also see one of his predecessors, which is Inca ruler from the Inca Empire, because he was also from two rulerships. He was from the Holy Roman Empire rulership, and he was from the Inca rulership that intermarried. And that's where you have that picture that I showed earlier from Lima, Peru. You have the rulership going from the start of the Inca rulership going all the way into the Holy Roman rulership. And you look at all those monarchs, and we will go over all those pictures and who those people are eventually. And all those people are of melanated descent, and especially Carlos V or Charles V. And when you look at that picture, on the right side, that is Carlos V. And on the left, that is Atapa, Emperor Atapa, Inca ruler. Charles V, from 1500 to 1558, was the ruler of the Holy Roman Empire. From 1519, Charles I of the Spanish Empire from 1516 until his voluntary retirement and adaptation in favor of his younger brother, Ferdinand I, and his son, Philip II, in 1556 as the heir of the three emperors leading into the dynasty. The House of Habsburg, that's where you get the Habsburg jaw, of the Habsburg monarch, the House of Villars of Burgundy, in the Netherlands, the House of Transmont, the Crowns of Castile and Aragon. He ruled over the extensive domains of the central, western, southern Europe and the Spanish colonies in the North and the Central and South America and the Caribbean and Asia. And this is just talking about different regions that Charles V was rulership over. You have to understand that Spain was one of the biggest empires in the 1314. Well, really from the early first century, 1000 AD. Really before that, I'll give them 700 AD, all the way up until the late 1700s. Spain essentially was one of the biggest superpowers in the world. They were essentially what America is today. They had dominion over a lot of different principalities all over the world, and how they went about doing that was not just by force, but they would intermarry into these monarchs and rulerships and have different partnerships with them, as you see with Charles V. The Holy Roman Emperor Charles V was the ruler of the Holy Roman Empire. You know, his father retired. Charles was the eldest son of Philip I of Castile, known as Philip the Handsome, who we just talked about earlier. Sarcastic, the famous Protagoras Habsburg believed that he had begun with Philip and Joanna of Castile, Joanna the Mad, as the heir of the three Europe's leading dynasties: the house of the Habsburg monarch, the house of the Villiers of Burgundy in Burgundy, Netherlands, and the house of Transmata of the crowns of Castile and Aragon. And we just read of this earlier. That's just describing his grandfather and how that rulership came together, and basically how a lot of people of their time, that's where they feel like the Habsburg jaw came into play, was when his grandmother and his grandfather married, and that's where they say that's where the start of the Habsburg jaw came from. And I'm put another picture of Charles V. Much of Charles' reign was devoted to Italy's wars against France, which, although enormously expensive, were militarily successful. Charles' force recaptured both Milan and Franche-Comté from France after a decisive Habsburg victory at the Battle of Pavia in 1525, which pushed Francis to form of Franco, the Ottoman alliance. Charles revived the Suleiman the Magnificent, that conquered in the central part of the Hungarian kingdom in 1526. After defeating the Christians in the Battle of the Mohacs, however, the Ottoman advance was halted after they failed to capture Vienna in 1529. Aside from this, Charles was best known for his role in opposing the Protestant Reformation of several German princes abandoned the Catholic Church and formed the Schismatic League in order to challenge Charles' authority with the military force. Unwilling to allow the same religious wars to come to his other domains, Charles pushed for the convocation of the Council of Trent, which began the counter-reformation of the Society of Jesus, was established by Saint Ignacio de Loyola during Charles' reign in order to peacefully and intellectually combat the Protestantism and potentially Spain, inspired from the religious conflict largely by Charles' nonviolent measures. In the New World, Charles oversaw the Spanish colonization of the Americas, including the Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire and the Inca Empire. Charles provided 5 ships to Ferdinand Magellan, whose voyage was the first to circumnavigate the earth, and laid the foundation for the Pacific Ocean Empire of Spain and began the Spanish colonization of the Philippines. And just and I'm gonna put up a picture of a coin that was issued in 1537 during the period of Charles V that occupied Wittenberg. There'll be a picture of him. But just to highlight some more information, just to let people know, is this is just to show people that it wasn't just so-called white people that were doing the things that we claim they were doing, that were putting people into slavery, that was taking lands, that was reappropriating things that was not theirs and bringing them into their possessions. it wasn't just so-called white people, so-called black people too. And at this time, you have what you call different wars going on in Europe, and later on in this video, I'm gonna harp on that too and break that down. And these wars were covered up by what you call religious wars and racial wars. And through these different religious wars and racial wars, the indigenous population, or the original population of that land, dwindled to nothing. So this is why when people ask, is like, so what happened to all the black people that were in Europe? Well, through these different wars and changes of monarchs and things that was going on, the numbers just dwindled down to a very low bit. And then once it got to a small number, they just shipped them people out. And me going over this information is showing you this. And I'll break it down even more, but this is just a highlight, just more what I'm talking about when people ask, okay, I see you show me the pictures of these so-called black people that were living here, but what happened to them? Where did they go? And this is what happened. You have them going through these many different wars, and these wars were coming from the invading people that were coming into Europe. And I'm gonna break that down in another video. You have different groups of what you call Indo-Europeans. What Indo-European mean is somebody that are the predecessors of the original or the indigenous people of Europe. So that's where you have your so-called white people come in, and they are the Indo-Europeans of Europe. They are the people of today. That's why a lot of the people of today, they don't speak the ancient language of Europe, like the Celtic language or the Phoenician language. They don't speak those languages because those languages are very similar to, and I posted a picture of it when I did the Irish breakdown, to Canaanite languages of Africa and languages in America. And you do not see white people speak or write those languages because they are not those original inhabitants of that land. They came in far later after that culture was there. But to get back to the document, but Charles, being a black man, was uncomfortable with what the albinos were doing. Murder, enslavement that left of the lands to non-albinos. Therefore, Charles convened a conference at Villeneuve in order to consider the morality of the methods used against the indigenous populations of the new territories. It included figures such as Bartolomé Las Casas. The debate from 1550 to 1551 was the first moral debate in European history to discuss the rights and treatment of colonized people by colonizers, held in Caligo San Guerrero in the Spanish city of Valladolid. It was moral and theological debate about the colonization of the Americas. Its justification for the conversation to Catholicism, and more specifically about the relations between the European settlers and the natives of the New World. It consisted of a number of opposing views about the way natives were being integrated into the colony life, their conversation to the Christianity, and their rights and obligations. So basically what that was breaking down is that, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, is Charles V family was of Inca descent. So he always had a heart for the indigenous people of that land. It's not like he was the one that wanted. It's not like he wanted the people to get mistreated, or he wanted the death and destruction like it happened. And that's why they had this meeting and they had to talk about it. But as we come to find out, soon after Charles V reign was over, they just got back to business. Because you have to understand that these so-called white people that were coming to the Americas with the so-called Moors. The Moors had money. The Moors have been traveling for thousands of years. This is nothing new to them. They have a certain code of conduct when they travel to new places, in places that are not in their dominion, that they have no rulership over. But when you have so-called white people come, they came and seen how they were living. They wanted to take for themselves. They wanted to have an opportunity for themselves, just like they do today. But to get back to the document. Though always at war, Charles was a lover of peace, not greedy of territory, wrote Marcantonio Cartari in 1536, but most greedy of peace and quiet. Charles retired in 1556. The Habsburg monarch passed to Charles' younger brother, Ferdinand, whereas the Spanish Empire was inherited by his son, Philip II. The two empires will remain allies until the 18th century. So that just lets you know that he was a lover of peace more than he was a lover of war. Even though the monarch was known for war and raping and pillaging, that wasn't what he wanted to do. And he could have spent his whole life as a king, living in the rulership, but he retired and gave it to his brother because that was something that he didn't want no part of anymore. And that does let you know where his heart was and where he was in his life at that time. And I'm gonna put a picture of his wife. It's called Isabella of Portugal. They call her Isabella the Mad. Isabella of Portugal, 1503 to 1539, was the Holy Roman Empress, the Queen of Germany, Spain, Naples, Sicily, the Duchess of Burgundy, and the spouse of Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor. She was the daughter of Manuel I of Portugal and Maria of Aragon. She served as a regent of Spain during the absence of her spouse for long periods. And I put a picture of her, and I just wanted to give a quick background. I don't want to go too long on it. I know this video is going to be about 2 hours long, so I don't want to get too long with it. I understand how it goes. Through her father, she was the granddaughter of the Infante Ferdinand, Duke of Viseu, the second son of King Edward of Portugal, the brother of King Afonso V of Portugal, and the Infante Beatrice, the daughter of Infante John, the lord of King Edward, the brother of King Edward. And so I put a picture of her so you can see what she looked like. And then I also put up pictures of, this is his son right here, Philip II of Spain, which when he retired, this is who he gave his rulership to. And obviously you can tell he is of melanated descent. And this is the actual picture that you can see in the museums they still have today. And this is a picture of his daughter Maria of the Holy Roman Empire, Maria of Austria, which was the wife of Maximilian II. And then we have another picture. This is Joanna, the Princess of Portugal, as his daughter. Another one is John of Austria. And this picture right here is Margaret, Duchess of Florence. This is his daughter. And I will do further detail about her because there's some more information about her as well. And we all know his father, Philip the Handsome of Castile. And I won't go into detail about Philip. We just did a breakdown of him. And this is another picture. This is his maternal grandfather, which is Ferdinand II of Aragon, which is known as Ferdinand of the Catholic, which from 1452 and to 1516 was the king of Aragon and Sicily and Naples. And his wife was Isabella I of Castile. And there's some more information on that document. I'm not going to run too long on it. I just want to keep it concise and short, and y'all can go back and read it for yourself and go into further detail and what you can do. And this is what I would recommend doing is The information that I do give you, also piggyback more research off of that. The information that I do provide in these documents, be like, hey, I want to know more, so let me look up these people's names. Let me look up Moore's history and these different terms that he's using to see if I can pull more info. And it might help you out in that way too. But I just didn't want to run too long-winded. I just want to keep this as short as possible. And we're going to have another part to this, because this is just part one. And this is the part one of a series for Moors in Spain. All right. And then before I close out, this is the main part I want to talk about. We touched on it earlier with Charles V. Is you have, and you can look this up yourself, and we'll continue to go through this too when we talk about other portions of different segments of history, and when we talk about the so-called albino races and invading Indo-European races when they came into play. We'll touch more on this too, but this will be the precursor for a lot of that. And this is talking about the different series of wars that we're going through Europe, because what a lot of people don't understand is at the same time that Europe was so-called waging war on America and colonizing, they were going through different wars and reconstruction and different things themselves. And I've touched on that with iconoclasm, with the Cromwells and what they did with the whitewashing, which they went around destroying a lot of the older pictures and artifacts that we're showing in this video and videos prior to this. That those type of artifacts and history was destroyed by the Cromwells in order to usher in this new history by the current ruling monarchs you see today, which are the so-called white people, which you can Google them today, which were not the original rulers of that land. So let's get into this. And I'm gonna put a picture up, and this is this picture right here is in you can go see this in two places. I have a picture of this myself. One of them, you can go to Washington D.C., the Smithsonian Museum. They'll have this up and showing you themselves with a picture of Portugal, Spain, and basically depicting and showing you that Moors ruled Spain and what Portugal, Spain looked like, what Portugal looked like at that time. And it's very eye-opening to see for somebody that doesn't know this information. Because I know the first time I went there, and I went there with my parents, and I showed them, and when I'm going there, I've seen the picture online. I've seen posts about it. I've read a book about it since I was 15, 16 years old. But to actually go there and to see it yourself and to be like, hey, it brings a whole different feeling. But that's enough about that. We're gonna go to this, and this is basically a picture depicting what Europe looked like before the 30-year wars. It was very much more. You have a more ruling class of the black nobility or the Moors, and it's more mixed, similar to what you see America today, but a more dominant ruling class of black people. That'd be the only difference. But it was very, very much more integrated than what they tried to make it seem like. And especially when you watch any movies or depictions of this sort of time, they only really show white people, but that is not the case. It was very, very mixed society with different races and cultures. And this picture is called the King's Fountain in Lisbon. The King's Fountain depicts a scene set around the Lisbon, the capital of then the Kingdom of Portugal, painted in the late 16th century. The work features images associated with the wealth and power of the burgeoning Portuguese Empire. Trades goods from Japan, Goa, and various African kingdoms are seen as African slaves and free Africans. So this is what I was trying to tell you. You have different classes of people. You have white slaves, you have black slaves, you have free blacks, you have free whites, you have ruling class blacks, you have ruling class whites. And this is all depicted in that time, in the 1600s and 1500s. And that's this picture I'm putting up. Jewish constables, among several other Jewish men and women, can be seen detaining a thief or a drunk by paying a nobility. Contains depiction of an Afro-Portuguese knight endowed with a heraldry and on the order of Santiago, sometimes identified as Juan de Sapasigo. More domestically minded work can be seen, such as the boatmen unloading their grain and attending to passengers, while jugglers and vendors can be seen mingling with the crowd. Several animals are also presented. The painting currently is on display, just like I said, in Portugal, Spain. And note the Black King, or the High Noble of Portugal, Spain, which is the cross, the Order of Santiago, which is the cloak at the bottom right. And you'll see, I'll show you the picture. You'll see the people, the two white guys detaining the Moor. He'll have a turban on, and you'll see them trying to grab him. They saying they stole something. Matthias' Catholic policies were opposed by more than intrinsic Catholic Habsburgs. Partially, Matthias' brother, Archduke Maximilian, who hoped to secure the succession for the inflexible Catholic Archduke Ferdinand, later Emperor Ferdinand II, the start of the Bohemian Protestant Revolt in 1618. Maximilian to imprison Celts and revise his policies. Matthias, the old ailing, was unable to prevent a takeover by Maximilian's faction. Ferdinand, who already been crowned King of Bohemia 1617 and Hungary of 1618, succeeded Matthias of the Holy Roman Empire. Matthias died in Vienna 1619. The 30 Years' War of 1618 to 1648. The 30 Years' War is one of the great conflicts of the early modern European history. The 30-Year Wars was consistent of a series of declared and undeclared wars, which regarded through the years of 1618 to 1648 throughout Central Europe. During the 30 Years' Wars, opponents were, on the one hand, the House of Austria, Habsburg, the Holy Roman Empire, Ferdinand II, and Ferdinand III, together with the Spanish cousin Philip V. During the long course of the 30-Year War, the Habsburg were opposed by various international opponents of the House of Austria, the Danish, the Dutch, all the above, France, and Sweden. Multiple dimensions of conflict. In addition, it is international dimensions of the 30 Years' War that was a German civil war. The principles which made up Germany took up arms for against the Habsburg are most commonly both at different times during the 30 Years' War. So what this is saying is with the Civil War and conflicts in Germany, you have different conflicts outside of Germany happening all at the same time in a 30-year span. So it kind of creates confusion because you don't know who's on what side, because there are so many different conflicts around other conflicts. And this also plays into the part where people are like, so what happened to the ruling black? What happened to the black nobility? Well, this kind of is detailing a lot of it, because when you have all these wars and these different things going on, a lot of things change hands really fast. The 30 Years' War was also, at least in part, a religious war among Catholics, Lutherans, Calvinists, Ferdinand II, and also lesser degree primary ally of Maximilian I, represented the recatholicizing zeal of the Jesuit counter-reformation, while Frederick V of Palatine represented equally the militant forces of Calvinism. And we're going to put up a picture of depicting, and in this picture, the same picture is just different portions of it. You just zoomed in and expanded out. If you look at what the different guards, what the people have on, you'll notice that you'll notice that they're all of different religious descents. You'll see people with turbans on. You'll see a person with a cross on. You'll see somebody with a rosary on. You just notice that there are different factions just in this picture. War and progression and key events. Foreign powers, the French, the English, the Dutch, formed a league to oppose the Habsburgs, which the Habsburgs are the so-called black people. We just looked at Charles V, and he was going through it with the war. So just to so you'll understand at this time, the Habsburg were so-called black people. They were found, their champion, Christian V of Denmark, who was also extensive possessions in the northern Germany. Christians invaded, and was crushingly defeated by the army of the Catholic League and a new imperial force under the enigmatic Bohemian Kardinal Wallenstein. And sorry for these some old names. Emboldened by the victory, the emperor issued an edict of restitution, requiring the return of all lands expropriated from the Roman Church since the 1550s. So basically, he wanted an edict to basically return all the lands that was extorted and reappropriated by them in that span of time. Faced with increasing pressure from the Habsburg, the Bohemians rose in revolt. They deposed the Habsburgs and crowned Frederick V of Palatine as their king initially, and revolted that seemed destined for success. However, Ferdinand II struck back and subsidized by the Spanish and relatives in an alliance with the Catholic League and with Lutheran Saxon. And before I continue, just to give you a backstory on all this is the reason why Spain started to sell a lot of their land to the British and to into the French, and they started to pull out of colonizing as much as they did in the 1500s, 1600s. As that's how America became the country it is today, where they have Florida, they have New Mexico and all that. The reason why they have that land today is because they had to sell that land because of what I'm reading to you right now. All these different revolts and wars costed them so much money that they had to pull back their investments that they had. And this is just solidifying that, and just we'll talk about this on another video, but just to give a little backstory about this was part of the plan by so-called white people, but more extensively so-called white Jews that came from Khazaria. And this is a whole nother video for another day, but they had a plan to get these people into debt by waging wars and different series of wars, similar to what they do with America, because war is a way to make money. And a lot of countries might not have the funds to buy the weapons they need, or they will go into debt, overspending for the weapons and resources they need to go to war. So what they would do is they would capitalize off of these countries by loaning them money and loaning them the resources they needed to continue these perpetual wars that they would help and continue by. And they would do things by, back in the day, we didn't have things like the internet, so they would go put out newspapers, books, and articles and letterheads saying certain things that may not be true. And especially in that day and time, the fastest way to get somewhere would be on a horse or a boat. And by the time somebody would get there, it would be far too late. The article was published and perception was already made. And things move very fast now. But as I continue, we're going to keep going. And we're going to put up a picture. And as I go, I'm going to flip through different pictures. And in the pictures, it's going to tell you who this particular picture of and who is depicting in that time period. The Bohemians were utterly defeated near the Prague at the White Mountain. Simultaneously, the Spanish had invaded and conquered the lower Palatine Frederick's territory at the Rhine. This enabled the Spanish to secure the land en route for their territories in northern Italy to their lands in the modern-day Belgium. The Peace of Westphalia. And I'm going to put a picture up. This is a picture of, and we just talked about her. This is Charles V's daughter. Over the last 4 years of the war, the parties that were actively negotiating the Augsburg and the Munster and the Westphalia on the 24th of October, 1648, the Peace of Westphalia was signed, ending the 30 Years' War. So they signed a peace treaty trying to end the war, the peace terms. The Swedes will receive a large cash indemnity and control over the western Pomerania, Bremen, and Verden. The French will receive rights in nature unclear over Alsace, and the control of the emperor over the German territory rulers was reduced to nothing. Within the German portion of the empire, the private exercise of the non-conforming religion was permanent, and the organs of the government were rendered religiously neutral. The lands secularized by the Protestants in 1624 were generally allowed to remain so. However, in the Habsburg territories of Bohemia and Austria, the emperor was given nearly free hands to reimpose Catholicism. So what that is saying is basically in certain territories that was ruled by Spain, they had free reign to do whatever, to basically ramp up Catholicism and do it the way they wanted to, and that you had to follow my rule, my religion. And the German territories was not allowed the same right to do these things to other people. They could not do it. So you kind of see already where even in the peace treaty, it's not so quite fair. So when you have a peace treaty and both sides don't they agree to peace, but the sides are not fair, usually there's going to be another conflict later because one side is going to feel like they got done dirty. And that happens in history all the time. And another example would be Germany later on after World War I. After World War I, that is the start of World War II because they felt like they got a bad deal for World War I. So let's go. Results of wars and casualties and disease. So great was the devastation that was brought by the war that estimates put the reduced population in the German states about 25 to 40%. Some regions were affected much more than others. For example, the Rittenberg lost 3/4 of its population during the war. In the territory of Brandenburg, it losses amounted to half, while in some estimated 2/3 of the population died. The male population of the German states were reduced to almost half. And I'm gonna put a picture up of Ferdinand II of the Holy Roman Empire of the 30 Years' War. And there's very few pictures of him too, because in this time, just like I said, this is also the time of the Cromwells and when they were going around destroying different pictures and things. And that's why I'm reading this, and I want you to go back and watch the other videos that I put out, and you will notice that a lot of this stuff is happening all at the same time. Yes, it is. And this is how you know and you can understand that these people did not conquer America and Africa like they said they did, but how could they when they're having wars with themselves at the same time? It makes no sense, but we're going to continue. The population of the Sex Islands declined by a third due to the war, disease, and famine, and the expulsion of the Protestant sects. Much of the destruction of the civilian lives and property was caused by the cruelty and greed of the mercenary soldiers, many of whom were rich commanders and poor soldiers. Destruction of the statistics. The Swedish armies alone may have destroyed up to 2,000 castles and 18,000 villages and 1,500 towns in Germany. 1/3 of all German towns. The war was seriously dislocations to both the economy and populations of Central Europe. So that just lets you know that they destroyed a bunch of castles, towns, and stuff. So a lot of the pictures and different artifacts that the few that I do show you through my different videos it's much more than that. But they were destroyed through these wars, and this was purposely done. And they did this in America, they did this in China, they did this in Australia, they did this all over the world, and basically a way of terraforming to basically rebuild and reconstruct a whole new history. So when they tell you this history now, they'll basically say that white people always been there, and that has always been white people's history, when they did so much to erase the black essence of that land. Pestilence and disease. Pestilence was of several kinds and raged amongst cohabitants and civilians in Germany and surrounding lands from 1618 to 1648. Many features of the war spread disease. This includes troop movements, influx of soldiers from foreign countries, and shifting of locations and battlefronts. In addition to this, displacement of civilians populations and overcrowding of refugees into cities led to both disease and famine. Information about numerous epidemics and generally found in local chronicles, such as parishes' registers, tax records, and are often incomplete and may be exaggerated. However, the Danish imperial armies met in Saxon and Thuringia during 1625 and 1626. Disease and infection in the local communities increased. Local chronicles repeatedly referred to the head disease, Hungarian disease, and spider disease identified as typhus. So basically just they had disease running rampant, and that's something that they deal with. That's a byproduct of war, and just a byproduct of famine, because you're using a lot of your resources, and you're putting people in situations that they probably would not be in, which is life or death, and they're going to war. So you're using all your resources, and you're putting people in situations where they get a cut, they get a wound, they get infected, they have a disease, they go home. You know what I'm saying? So you have these different things going on. You have people eating. You have famines, which encourage people to eat things that are not clean, drink from water sources that are not clean. There's less clean source of food and water. All these things play a part into the disease and the decline of the population of the people in this area. The transformation of Europe. We view the 30 Years' Wars as the defining wars of the and the Albanos' effort to remove the blacks from Europe and the end of the black homogeneity in Europe. That's because by this time, the Americans provided a place to send civilian survivors and prisoners of war. But there were many other wars in Europe which directly or indirectly furthered the albino cause of the black eradication. European wars contributed to demographic changes. 1066, the Norman Conquest. 1096 to 1291, the Crucibles. 1337 to 1453, the 100 Years' War. 1420 to 1436, the Hussey Wars. 1455 to 1485, the War of Roses. 1494 to 1559, the Italian Wars. 1524 to 1525, the Peasant Wars in Germany. 1562 to 1598, the Wars of Religion in France. 1566 to 1648, 80 Years' War. 1618 to 1648, 30 Years' War. 1701 to 1714, War of Spanish Succession. And 1756 to 1763, 7 Years' War. And we're gonna go over some key figures of this of the war during this time. But just to let you know, that's a layout from the early 1000s, which they say is the so-called Dark Ages, all the way until the 1700s. And when you, and just like I've depicted in my other videos, about the late 1700s, early 1800s, that is when you see the last of the black nobility in rulership, and then you don't see it no more. That's because all these wars that I just went over are the eradication of those people in that time, and it was strategic of how they did it. And this is something that can be proven through science and just factual based, because they can say that these people that are here now have no recollection of the languages and the history that have came before. It's almost like this is a whole new revamped version of the history that came when they came before, when the Iberians, the Phoenicians, the Etruscans were there in that land. But to get back to the document, Leopold I, between 1640 to 1705, the Holy Roman Emperor, the King of Germany and Hungary. And remember, just like I said earlier, how they were biased against Germany, and how Germany didn't have no power, and how they were pulling their territory and pulling their power and trying to basically reconstruct Germany and trying to pull the rulership out of there. This is why. He was the second son of the Emperor Ferdinand III and the first wife of Maria Austria of Anna of Austria. His maternal grandparents were Philip III of Spain and Margaret of Austria, who was also the first cousin of the rival Louis the Sixth of France. And this is a picture you see of a Dutch poet. Leopold became you'll see this is a picture of Leopold I. You'll see the big nose, big lips. He was obviously a brother. And there are more pictures I'll put up. If I got them, I'll put them up of him. But Leopold became the heir to apparent on July the 9th, 1654, with the death of his elder brother Ferdinand V, and reigned as a holy emperor from 1658 to 1705. Leopold's reign was marked by the military successes against the Ottoman Empire in the Great Turkish War through the greatest general prince of Eugene of Savoy. So just like I said, if you really understand and break that down, through the Great Turkish War, which means they was help pushing a lot of those tribes from Turkey out. They was pushing them back to where they came from at that time. They were trying to stave off some of the things, some of the albinos that was coming in. They were trying to stave off some of the change that was coming. So we're gonna go the 9-Year War from 1688 to 1697, and this is under Leopold's rulership. The 9 Years' War. They often called the War of the Grand Alliance, the War of the Palestine Secession, the War of the League of Augsburg, was the major war of the late 17th century, fought between Louis of France and a European-wide coalition of the Grand Alliance. I'm gonna put a picture up of Duke Frederick of Saxon, 1625. The War of the Spanish Succession of 1701 to 1714. The War of Spanish Succession was fought among several European powers, including a divided Spain, over possible unification of the kingdoms of Spain and France under the Bourbon monarch, under one of the Bourbon monarchs. We'll go over additional world figures and here go another Francesco
Ferdinand, Duke of Parma, 1678 to 1727. The Duchy of Parma was created in 1545 from that part of the Duchy of Milan, the south of the Po River, and the fief of the Pope Paul III, the illegitimate son of Pier Luigi Ferdinand. Francesco reigned as the seventh and the Pupillant Ferdinand, Duke of Parma, from 1694 until his death. Put a picture of him up, you see what he look like. And then we got another prominent figure, which is Ferdinand VI, was king of Spain from July 9, 1746 until his death. He was the fourth son in the previous monarch of Philip V. And his first wife was Maria Lucia Savoy. Ferdinand was the third member of the Spanish Bourbon dynasty. And just to break down, and we've talked about this before, that word Bourbon, the reason why they're using that word Bourbon is also that is the dynasty, but it's also telling you the physical characteristics of those people, because names at that time told you a couple things. It told you about their family, what they were known for, and it also may have a depiction of what they look like. So if somebody was tall, short, if they were dark, they would have a name like Brown or Kenneth the Dub of Niger. These are just things that our names are rooted in. And I put a picture of Ferdinand of Spain. Same thing, you'll see the big lips, big nose, big eyes. And also I put another picture, you see a couple pictures, so we'll go to Joseph I from 1678 to 1711. Holy Royal Emperor, King of Bohemia, King of Hungary, King of the Romans, was the elder son of the Emperor Leopold I and his wife, and his third wife, Eleanor Margaret of Nuremberg. In 1699, he married the Princess of Amelia Brunswick and Lunenburg, the daughter of John Frederick, Duke of Brunswick-Lunenburg. And you'll see a picture right here of Joseph I. I put a picture up of him. And you also see another picture where you'll see what I wanted to show you. And this picture right here is basically going to show you what would, from that point on, from the beginning of the 1700s on, what was happening in Europe, and why you'll see a picture from the 1500s. Everybody's dark skinned, melanated with curly hair. Then you'll get to the 1700s, and you'll start to see people with lighter hair, but they'll still have the Negroid features. But then you'll see them with lighter skin. And this is why, because in this picture, which is depicted before, you have interracial marriage and intermingling of different societies. They were marrying into each other, and by that mixing, you have so-called white people that took over and rose into power that way by intermarrying and by mixing. It started off by the Moors, or so-called black people of the era. That was something they commonly did, was had white wives. But then so-called white people did the same thing and got into the rulership that way by marrying into there. And we're gonna go to in conclusion, we're gonna go ahead and close this out. And in conclusion, the new Europe. Now there's no more blacks in Europe. Where there is, after all those wars, there is a new Europe. In this new Europe, there's no longer any blacks. that have disappeared. At this point, even the dimmest would suspect, any dimmest would suspect that there is much there's albinos that are not telling us. But then again, who are the dimmest? Will believe the history that albinos anyway. Who would believe the history that albinos give us anyway? Aren't these the people who have taught us that there were no blacks in Europe? Yet in these pages, we have learned that blacks were the first settlers of Europe. But more than that, they were the rulers of Europe until the fall of the Holy Roman Empire. And before I close out, I always got to close out with a verse. And just for the people who want to know where I'm reading from, this is Ecclesiastes 1, 8 through 10. All things that are worrisome, more though than one can say. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear is filled of hearing. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one can say, look, there is something new? It was here already, long ago. It was here before our time. And that ties into this because just like when I opened up the beginning, and I'll put some pictures of, if you look at Europe today, and a lot of the issues they have today with immigration is they have a problem with immigration, with Muslims immigrating and Africans immigrating back into Spain, back into Europe, back into Great Britain, back into France. And you can see this through many different ways, through the NBA and through sports. You just see more melanated people depicted in Europe in that way, which is through the culture, through rap music, or different outlets of the media outlets. There's just more melanated people represented in that land, in that area. And in our lifetime, we will see that land return to the pictures and the depictions of what I'm showing you, because that is something that is ordained. That is something that has to happen, because when things are begotten by deceit and by unrighteousness, those things have to be overturned. The land has been tainted through all these wars and through all these killings and disease and pestilence. And that's what we're seeing today. Y'all be safe. Y'all praise the Most High. Take care of each other. Love your people. And this is just part 1. We will be back soon with a part 2 and a part 3, but this is just a one part. I don't want to run it too long, even though it is going to be long, but I just appreciate you taking your time to watch this video. And if you have any questions, any comments or concerns, please DM me, please email me, and all this information will be in the description. Please, 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 please use that. We use the descriptions. Please, please read over these documents. It will help you out. Thank you.
Africans ruled Spain from 711. We were calling ourselves Moors, M-A-U-E-R-S, then M-O-O-R-S. From 711 until 1485, 774 years, when we built and brought into Europe the university system, building the University of Salamanca, S-A-L-A-M-A-N-C-A in Spain, a copy of the University of Jenné from ancient Ghana, which was equally a copy of the University of Sankore in Tombouctou, which the French later called Timbuktu. Now, these look, if you want to read it, read Stanley Lane Poole's The Moors in Spain, written in 1887, or Alejandro Macaziza. Read his book in Spanish, The Moors in Spain, and said that even the bath was introduced by those Africans.
We tend to think of this as the beginning of an era. In fact, it's the climax of a forgotten chapter in European history. In the year 711 AD, Muslim forces invaded Spain and created a society so rich and so powerful it was the envy of the known world. This wasn't the rigid, ferocious Islam of our imaginations, but a progressive, sensuous, intellectually curious culture that for a number of spine-tingling years looked set to sweep through the whole of Europe. It is an incredible story, but one that has been systematically written out of history.
After the Catholic monarchs took over the city of Granada, they began to destroy all evidence that the Muslims had ever been in Spain. These people have become known as the Moors.
Propaganda, sparked by the Crusade, has given us an enduring image. The diabolical Moor, a dark-skinned, savage, alien enemy.
Now, archaeologists and historians are starting to piece together the real story of the Moors in Spain. They're uncovering the remains of hidden cities. Not a single account of life here survives. All its archives were incinerated in the fires of the Inquisition.
But the Catholics couldn't bring themselves to destroy this place. The Alhambra is one of the wonders of the medieval world, and by preserving it, they've kept a box of secrets that we can use to decode the civilization that built it.
Inside the palace walls, the architecture is breathtaking. Every detail of the palace decoration seems to be part of a scheme. Row upon row of intricate geometric patterns are carved into the woodwork of the walls and windows.
This is the throne room. It was the symbolic centre of the palace, and here the Sultan had a kind of psychological advantage over his subjects. Whereas he'd have stood here in eerie silhouette, they'd have been blinded by the light that came streaming in through these brightly coloured stained glass windows. But this is far more than just a beautiful building. There's a specific reason why it feels so harmonious. The men who built it had a knowledge of complex geometry which had originated in the ancient world.
The Alhambra is so enchanting, it's all too easy to view it as a fairy tale palace, isolated from history. But that is romantic nonsense. This palace was the product of a very real, very gritty history. The Alhambra was built by a religious empire which, at the pinnacle of its power, dominated land from China to Africa. An empire which had the wealth and intellect to build such masterpieces.
What it says in Arabic is, I am the apogee of knowledge. Come, you Muslims. Come and learn, because with knowledge you can become what you want to be.
They were well versed in using the stars as guiding devices. this developed into a very sophisticated study of astronomy. Then with the establishment of Islam, that knowledge was applied in a new way. Whenever a mosque was built, the prayer niche had to be orientated in direct relation to Mecca, and there were a number of religious festivals that had to fall on certain days in the lunar year.
These were complex mathematical problems for which the Muslims devised precise solutions. Islam became a culture which naturally embraced scientific and mathematical investigation. This uninhibited attitude towards learning meant that when Muslims encountered the teachings of other cultures, they seized upon them vigorously.
From the Bronze Age onwards, there'd been a constant exchange of artifacts and information all across the Eastern Mediterranean. And in fact, a number of Greek ideas stem from Eastern and Egyptian influences.
This little stretch of water between Spain and Morocco is only 9 miles wide, but it's come to represent some kind of cultural chasm between Europe and Africa. But in the 8th century, when sea travel was the way to get around, that wasn't a barrier, it was a highway.
In July 711, 7,000 Berber tribesmen stormed across the Straits of Gibraltar and invaded Europe. The Muslims then began an incredible process of expansion. In just 4 years, they'd colonized almost the whole of Spain, had crossed the Pyrenees, and were only halted at Poitiers in France.
The Muslims started to build a new society.
The enthusiasm for learning that the Islamic world had spent years nurturing was about to be transmitted to Europe.
This is the secret of how such a great civilization came to be born.
The foundations of a new society had been laid. A self-confident, progressive and sophisticated civilization had arrived among the failing states of Europe. And the continent's history was about to be transformed. The Alhambra was the creation of the richest, most intellectually powerful civilization in the world. The roots of this cultural and religious explosion lie not in Spain, but in the deserts of... The Muslim invasion of Spain had been swift and effective, but it lacked a strong leadership. The first wave of invaders were North African tribesmen. His mother had been from North Africa, and Abd al-Rahman must have grown up hearing tales of Al-Andalus. And so he made a dangerous journey across the Nile and the deserts of Egypt, heading for those distant lands. Abd al-Rahman brought culture and learning from the center of the Islamic world straight to the heart of Al-Andalus.
When Abd al-Rahman arrived in Spain, he came here to Cordoba, where the city was in complete disarray.
Abd al-Rahman brought cutting-edge technology for irrigation to Spain. Almost immediately, the landscape was transformed. Palm trees, lemon and orange groves, avocados, artichokes and pomegranates, none of which had been seen in Europe. Because of Abd al-Rahman's sophisticated trade network, this new agriculture created huge wealth. And these riches were used to build one of the greatest cities in the world. While the inhabitants of London were still living in wooden houses, the people of Cordoba had built a cosmopolitan city with a population of over 100,000, the largest settlement in Europe. Reports from European visitors to Cordoba describe a city with 70 libraries and over 300 public baths. The accounts tell of houses with running water and roads illuminated by streetlights.
You often have to take medieval sources with a fairly substantial pinch of salt because chroniclers were extremely fond of exaggeration. But in fact, the new excavations here at Cordoba are actually revealing a city that was just as rich as the one that they described. These monumental palace walls belong to a Muslim aristocrat, and this channel over here is part of the water system that brought Cordoba its famously effective sewage works, as well as the fountains and the baths that so impressed all those European visitors.
Cordoba was described by a 10th century German visitor as the ornament of the world. Abd al-Rahman built Cordoba on top of what had been one of the largest cities in Roman Spain, outshining all that went before. And his greatest achievement was this: the Great Mosque of Cordoba.
Standard history books present the Muslim occupation of Spain as something that was superficial. New archaeological evidence is turning that idea on its head.
All over Spain, cities like Cordoba were established. Even Madrid. By aligning the needle to the grid using the measurements, the time can be read off the face of the astrolabe, just like a clock. The astrolabe enabled nighttime navigation, which helped to advance sea travel, and this in turn set the stage for the coming era of worldwide exploration and discovery. Cordoban scientists were streets ahead of the rest of Europe, especially when it came to medicine. The hospitals of Cordoba were performing operations which wouldn't be seen in the rest of Europe for hundreds of years. As well as large scientific collections, more everyday documents have survived from Islamic Cordoba. These give a detailed insight to the society that was created here.
What kinds of things are being recorded on these bits of paper?
In this document, there was written everything, absolutely everything.
Have you got any physical examples of these documents?
Yes, I have one. Well, it is a contract about plowing the land. For 2 years, we have to plant it with wheat and food, and he gets from this proportion of the production.
Every piece of evidence from Cordoba adds to the picture of a civilized and highly sophisticated city. It had medical centres, an organised legal system, and libraries full of academics and scientists working on ideas which were light years ahead of anything else in Europe. Abd al-Rahman III built himself one of the biggest royal palaces in the world. While the English kings of the same period were living in modest wooden halls, Abd al-Rahman III needed 10,000 workmen to construct this enormous palace complex, which was decorated with African white marble. The alabaster palace, surrounded by acres of date palms, was described as a concubine lying in the arms of a black eunuch. And Arabic translations of Greek geometry and those new Arabic numerals were passed on to craftsmen and architects. This was a critical stage in the growth of Western thought. We should no longer see the Renaissance as a rebirth, but the continuation of an intellectual movement which had been nourished centuries earlier.
The Italian Renaissance is famous for reviving classical learning, but in fact what's happening here 400 years earlier seems to be just as vital. Do you think that Muslim scholars aren't given due credit for what they're doing in Islamic Spain at this time?
It is not something that you would learn about in school, probably, or even at university. It was probably conscious process of neglect, and now we are still suffering from that.
Extremely selective history writing.
That's right.